Hey, back for a quick video. I was just thinking about this a little bit today. It's something I've been thinking about quite a bit over the last quite a while, actually, probably even longer than I've been here. But there's a notion that I've seen, and I've waited to comment on it for a while, and I may have touched on it in previous videos a little bit, but I feel as though I have begun to see, and this may not even be a new thing. This could go back within 50 years, but specifically within people in my age range or slightly younger, I've seen an obsession of aesthetic before form. Or wait, sorry, those are the same thing. An obsession of aesthetic before function. And while I can appreciate where that comes from, I think it's misguided, and I'm going to tell you why. I think, especially in the case of a lot of aesthetics that sorry, I'm still kind of sick, that go back, in history. Aesthetic came from the vernacular. It came from what people did, the resources they had available to them, stuff like that. Newer things, I suppose it's slightly different. There's even, I suppose, even because there's people with like 80s or 90s aesthetics, and even then, that's more of a it's bred on limitations, the limitations of the culture of software, hardware, things like that. And it's really it's been a problem for a while, but it's become more of a problem as there's become less and less limits on the production material things and import and export. You have to intentionally pick an aesthetic, and it's not really just a matter of, limitation. You pick it. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's interesting that we live in a time where you can do that. But what you need to consider is that as much or more that you consider aesthetic things, you should consider the function of things. Because in a lot of ways, functionality will create an aesthetic in the same way that it has throughout the entirety of history. So instead of beginning with the idea of an aesthetic that you'd like to accomplish, maybe consider the type of person or function you'd like to accomplish first, and then proceed to do that. And then you may develop an aesthetic that would be more realistic than if you were to just consider the aesthetic removed from its context. And there's something to be said about people that completely remove aesthetic from context. You see it all over the place. You have people with no convictions. They're really it's really a matter of projection. People that are obsessed with aesthetic, it's a projection thing. They want you to see them a certain way, even if they're not that way at all. And I think that gets worse with the internet. That's probably a thing with that too. But in reality, the way that they behave and the way that they conduct themselves is completely contrary to that aesthetic. And I think you don't want to be like that. You want to kind of think about those things first. You want to consider function before aesthetic. I kind of look like an average person that lives here. It's not really because I came here wanting to look like that. It's just, it's a matter of, these things work because they work. I'm wearing flannels and shit because you can tuck them in, and they're made of wool typically, or cotton and wool, a mix. So they keep water wicked off, but they keep the warmth in really well. You can layer very well. It gets very cold here, so you have to do that. It's 40 degrees in my house right now because I don't light a fire until later in the day typically, unless it's really cold. But I came here 4 years ago with like a collection of like work clothes, and I was a computer programmer, so it was like, button-up shirts and fucking cotton pants. What the fuck are they called? What the fuck are they called? Dress pants. There's a word for it, but I forget. Khaki pants. Khaki dress pants. That's what they're called. That's all I had. And shorts and t-shirts. And the first winter, I realized I don't think I have enough clothes. I think in order to get through this, I'm going to need a few more layers of clothing on me, or I'm going to fucking freeze to death. And that's why I did what I did. But in a lot of things, I considered function first. Like, I want to go and do this, and then what followed was an aesthetic that came from those things. I didn't start by thinking, oh, I want to look like this. No one wants to look like me, so that's probably why. But I just think it's interesting that in my pursuit of doing things in a functional way, an aesthetic arose from it. And I think it's backwards when people think, oh, I got to do the aesthetic first. I got to figure out my aesthetics. Then you do the function. I think if you do it that way, you're just going to get confused. Like, it doesn't make any sense. How do you know what you're doing? You know, how do you know if what you're doing, it makes sense for what you're, like, trying to look like? I don't know. It's kind of a rambly video. It's been on my mind. I want to do a better analysis on this. I wanted to get that off my mind because I thought it was something interesting. Bye.